Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 4, Episode 8.
Welcome back, friends, for our freshest episode to date. Today, our guest is the owner of a very newly reopened business. I honestly don't know that much about it, although I just took a tour, but I'm really excited to have the opportunity to dig into this and find out. Welcome, owner of Forage in Downtown Eau Claire, Meredith Kervin. I don't know. How do you say your name?
Let's just go with Meredith Kervin. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm, like you said, the owner of Forage. Fairly newly the owner of Forage. I bought it in January, at least part of it in January, and then the rest of it in May. For myself, I grew up in Chippewa, and I moved away for a few years, came back, and found myself starting a business or restarting a business.
Where'd you go? So you graduated high school in Chippewa. Where'd you go until you came back?
Yeah, so I went down to Madison for school, stayed there for a few years and did things in Madison for work. I worked at a marketing agency for about 5 years. And then my husband was looking for a job and announced that he had found a job in Eau Claire. And I said, oh my God, you're taking me back home, which I didn't think I was going to. So we took a tour up here, and it had changed so much from when I grew up in the area that we decided, yeah, this works great. It had everything we wanted. So, had the college town, had the water, had some family close by, and so decided to move back up here in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny part, right? When you're 18, you're like, Eau Claire sucks. This place is so, I mean, in general, people think that about their hometowns, right? Unless they're like a huge city. And everyone thinks they need to live in this big city so they can have this lifestyle and all these opportunities and all these things. And then, you get a little bit older and you realize, like, I don't really care to go to shows and parties and stuff all the time anyways. Like, I just kind of want a nice, relaxing place to do my thing. And you realize that Eau Claire is dope. Eau Claire is like the best place ever, I think, to raise a family right now. It's so cool. There's so many amenities, like the downtown area and stuff. It very much provides the best place for like young business minds, I guess, like the young professional type person. That fits this area a lot. And there's other things that Eau Claire offers, but that's what I really like about Eau Claire too. I only moved around a little bit, but I've definitely traveled enough to realize that I like Eau Claire. This is where I'm trying to live for sure. So how can people best follow you? How can they get in contact if they want to do anything with you, with Forage or whatever?
Sure. So the best way would probably be Facebook or Instagram. We're Forage EC on both of those, or email info@forageeauclaire.com. So check all of those pretty much all the time.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I always laugh about that. People ask me, how do I get a hold of people? And a lot of times it's just Instagram. This one wasn't via Instagram, but a lot of times it's just that. I don't think people realize you can just DM anybody. And unless they have 100,000 plus followers, they probably see it. They might choose to not respond, but they probably saw it.
Yeah, that's actually how I've gotten into contact with a lot of people around here is just, oh, you have something cool. Oh, okay, I'm going to DM you. So
yeah, it's such a powerful tool. It's so crazy. You don't have to keep a phone book. You don't have to have anyone's numbers. You don't have to wonder if their phone number changed and get anxiety before you call them. Everybody's just public now. It's pretty sweet. So what is Forage?
Yeah, so Forage has changed a little bit in the last year. So I would say Forage right now is a three-part. First, it's an event venue. It's an area where people can have their private events. We also host some public events, not right now, obviously, with COVID. We're gearing up to do a couple of small events in the future, but so the event venue is kind of the main part of Forage. And then we also have a commercial kitchen. So it's a shared use commercial kitchen. People who, have small food-based businesses or are thinking about starting a food-based business, they can rent the space and not really have that full investment of a commercial kitchen. And it allows them to test out recipes or test out, will this business actually work on a larger scale? And then the third part, which is new this year and in our new location, is the artist market. So when I moved the business from Banbury into our current location on Barstow, I wanted to be able to use the space more than just during events, because we have this beautiful space. We're right on Barstow. We have this, beautiful window, and we're next to some really great shops too. And so in order to use the space effectively and be a better part of the community, I wanted to showcase artists who maybe aren't in other areas of the community and don't have their wares on display, everywhere. So we were able to use the space for that as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that like the community gets pretty tight knit, but it's like it's like a friend group. I think Eau Claire's friend group is very welcoming to pretty much anybody, as in like the artist or an entrepreneurship world. I think they're pretty welcoming for sure. But like any friend group, everybody has their friends, right? So you tend to see a lot of the same people at all the same things, and it's because everybody hits up the same people because they've worked with them in the past. So whenever you get a new spot that's open, it's like, now it's fresh, It's not that the artists that are coming here aren't welcome in other places by any means, because I'm sure they are. It's just like they weren't really in with that crowd necessarily. So now when there's a new space, it kind of like makes that flow a little bit wider. Like it just gives more opportunity for everybody. It's never a bad thing to have more options for places to throw, do shows or sell their merch or promote themselves,
Yeah.
So what exactly was Forage before? Because I wasn't familiar with it. I didn't know it existed. What was it like before? What is it different? Like, how did it change now? Why did you want to be a part of that in the first place? Like, you did marketing. This is like, I guess, kind of connected. But like, what was it? Why did it happen like that?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to answer that question would be like how I got involved in Forage to start with. I went to one of the wine dinners up there, and one of the previous owners, Michelle, is this excellent chef. And so I went there, and it was seated as a community table. So you were talking with other people that, I had never met before, and had these great wines and this great meal. And I was talking with them afterwards about kind of what Forage was and could be. And the answer was it can be anything, because the commercial kitchen up there was used by food-based businesses, and then also for Forage events. And we were able to kind of do anything from then onwards, which was great. So when the opportunity came up to buy it in January, I jumped on it. I thought, okay, so yes, I was in marketing for years, but I wanted to do something that was my own. I didn't want to market someone else's business anymore. I wanted to be working fully towards my own goals. And Forage had this air of being able to bring people together in a way that I thought was really important in the Eau Claire community. So yeah, I bought in. And then COVID hit in March, 2 months after I bought in. And my previous business partner moved on to another business opportunity. And so I became sole owner in May and decided right off the bat, I don't want to keep it in Banbury because the space, while it was beautiful, had some problems. It didn't have any air conditioning, and it was really kind of hard to find, especially at night. If people are coming out for weddings, they didn't really want to do the Banbury maze trying to get up and find us. So moving it down into Barstow and the downtown community was important to me as part of bringing Forage, which is it's focused on the community, so we need to bring it to the community. We can't be something that they have to go seek out. We have to be part of the community and part of the whole downtown feel. So that's kind of what Forage was up there, and then down here we're starting to focus a little bit more on the event side.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes more sense down here. Like, honestly, I mean, and especially with how much foot traffic comes around this area, and you're in like the prime location. This like 3-block radius of Barstow is like the hottest spot right now. I was talking about that with Savannah from Seven Sons when I did that interview, and I actually looked at that space for my shop, before, and I was like, I can't do something this big. The overhead's too much. But this is like the exact location that you want to have. And I think if you looked around, it's nice and bright, it's open, like it's really pretty in here. And I think it really aligns with what these other businesses nearby are. Like
Yeah.
it all kind of tells a story, and it's like the story everyone wants to be involved in. It's pretty cool. I like it down here, and I think that especially when COVID is like done, when events can actually fully happen again, I think during the summers and stuff, this is going to be like this is going to have a lot of potential. You know what I mean? To do a lot of really awesome things.
That's the hope. Yeah, that's the hope.
So your description on Instagram says that you guys are an event venue, shared commercial kitchen, and artisan market. It seems to me like all three of those things would be incredibly difficult during a pandemic. So how and why did you do this thing now?
Yeah, they all sound like a terrible idea during a pandemic. So the wheels kind of got into motion starting at the end of April, back when we were all pretty optimistic about how this thing could be wrapped up in 6 or 8 months if we were all pretty cool about it. And so when I signed this lease was like the first week in May. And then from there, it was actually pretty good timing to move the business, because if I had a full calendar of events, scheduled up there, there's no way I would have shut down the business for 3 or 4 or 5 months and move it. So it actually ended up being a really, oddly good time to kind of get things moved and set in a better way down here, rather than kind of muddle through back up in Banbury. And now, it took about 3 months longer to finish the build out than we thought it would. So that pushed us back a little bit. We had hoped to be open kind of tail end of summer. And then that didn't happen. And then the next one was, we got to be open by Small Business Saturday. And we made that happen, which was awesome. So now it's just kind of getting through the pandemic and doing what we can with the space and what we have. And I think everybody else in the community is the same way right now, is just kind of get through it.
Well, I mean, any successful person is going to recognize that each opportunity is unique and each opportunity provides different things, right? And like, you can whine about it all you want. Like, yeah, I lost a lot of money this year. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But I also had a lot of time to work on different things. I talked to Benny Hazen last season, and like, when was he ever going to shut down the Plus to redo the floors?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
he's not going to lose. He's not going to shut down for a week to lose all that money, because why would you, to replace the floors? But then all of a sudden, when you're forced to close, you're like, wait, this is a random little window I never thought that I would have. Yes, I can complain about it, or I can use my time wisely.
Yeah.
And I interviewed a rapper, Casanova. He said the same thing. He's like, yeah, tours and everything stopped, but that all of a sudden meant I could create new music that I didn't have time to create before.
Yeah,
So,
everybody's creating these new, interesting things because we've never been able to slow down long enough to actually do them, and now we were forced to. So.
Right, and that's the thing, is like, a lot of people just sat around and complained about being bored, and the whole time I was like, dude, I'm not bored at all. Like, I've been filling all of my time. Oh my God. So how was opening day? Like, I don't even know what you guys did, but like, what did you do for it? How'd the first week go? Like, how have things been going? Because you just opened.
Yeah, so this is actually our third weekend open. The first weekend, we just did a very, very soft, simple opening. We just opened up our doors, nothing super special. We were hoping before COVID that we would do kind of a more grand opening, but then decided that was not safe in the current time. So we just opened up our doors. We started off with 7 different artists or makers in our artisan shop, and we've added 3 more since then. So slowly kind of building this network of artists who are new to the area, and the reception from people in the community has just been so nice. It really warms my heart, because especially now, people are so supportive and came out in droves to just kind of see the space. And even if they weren't here to buy something, they wanted to come and see our new location and meet me, because a lot of people hadn't met me yet because I bought in and then immediately went into lockdown. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's more and more of these types of things downtown, right? You got Ivy, who I interviewed, Kyle, a while back. I'm good friends with him. That's like a creative collaboration workspace, like artists, graphic designers and stuff can work out of there. Same way, within the same building, there's CoLab, which is like another like space like that. More and more things like this are like popping up all over the world, especially if you look. Like, I was in Thailand a little while ago, and that's like huge over there, because like they don't have good internet and nobody like has their own space. Nobody wants to like buy a property, because for one, like, you can't own a business unless you're Thai over there anyways. But there's all kinds of like collaborative workspaces where people can just come in and use a desk for whatever, a pretty low amount, which is what you're talking about with like the kitchen and stuff too. So who right now, you're the owner, but who's all a part of Forage? Like what, all the stuff that you guys are doing, if you want to just shout out some of the people maybe that like right away were, artists for you or whatever, but like who's all involved right now?
Sure. So in our artist market, the first one who, when I mentioned the idea, he just got on board immediately, was Bob Kropp out of Burr Oak Woods. He's this woodworker out of Colfax who he goes and he chops down the tree, and he preserves the wood, and then he makes things out of it. And he wasn't selling his products anywhere. He was just giving it away to friends and family, and really wanted to start selling, but he was, in his own space and didn't really have any sort of retail experience. And so he was the first one to say, like, no, I want all of my products in your store. And so that kind of got the ball rolling. My good friends over at the Glass Orchard, Don and John, they've been so supportive of the space and the process, and so they're here. Our first kitchen renters were actually Ramones. They started baking their cookies here for their cookie sandwiches. So a lot of really, really nice support from other business owners in the area and artists who heard about the space and wanted to be a part of it. I don't have any employees right now. I'm hoping to hire someone in the next few months so that I can have a weekend off. But yeah, it's just been myself, and then I asked my husband to help me on days off when he can. But besides that, it's just been myself and kind of getting the store set up, and then other people will come down and help as they have time.
Well, it's cool that like people in Eau Claire, at least it seems like most entrepreneurs, it's cool that people recognize that it's not a competition, and it doesn't have to be a competition at all. We can all just like use each other's tools to help each other, right?
Yeah.
Like rather than saying like, oh, I don't want to help Ramones like do more business, like, or you can help them do more business because that's only going to help you as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, unless somebody else, I guess, opens up a skateboard shop across the street from me.
Then you have a different opinion.
Then I might be like, dude, come on. Like, really? But in general, people are pretty cool about understanding we're not trying to take market share. Like, we're all just going to do better. If you do better, I'm going to do better because more people are going to come downtown. Like, everyone kind of has that figured out here. Let's talk about each of the things that you guys are trying to do because, again, this is like a 3-part business. Event-wise, there's really not as many event spaces as like we pretend to have in Eau Claire. Like, yeah, there's the Pablo, it's huge, and yes, the Plus like has events, but there's not that many spaces. So, what kind of events are you expecting to have here?
Sure. So, primarily, our space is set up for things like small wedding receptions, for bridal showers, for corporate events, things where people need a nice blank slate. And so that's kind of what we're geared up for. But then in addition to that, what we're hoping to do in the future is also things like listening sessions with local artists and bringing in some talent possibly from the cities and small concerts where you're getting that intimate experience. Our space down here is a little bit larger than what we had up at Banbury. And so we're able to do about 80 people seated, up to 100 people possibly, depending on how many tables I can get set up. But the event venue is really supposed to be this, like I said, blank slate. People can make it whatever they need it to be.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's not ever like, it's never a bad thing to have more options for people, for artists and musicians and stuff. It's never a bad thing if all of a sudden there's another space to potentially do something. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I guess I'm just looking forward to like when Jazz Fest and stuff are a thing again, when they shut down the street and there's like all these people walking by. This is the perfect place for those types of things. So with the shared commercial kitchen, again, I don't like cook things. I cook in my house, but like I don't really know that much about that stuff. Is there really a big demand for that? Who's looking to use your kitchen? Why is that important to offer it?
Sure. So there's a surprisingly large demand for commercial kitchens in this area. There are a few others in Eau Claire that people can rent, but what we found is that there's enough people wanting to start food-based businesses, especially during the pandemic, where they need a shared-use kitchen. They need a commercial kitchen that is properly licensed in order to do that. So we have about 5 people right now who use our kitchen, and I have 6 or 7 who are in the works in terms of licensing and kind of getting their feet underneath themselves. And then in addition to the commercial kitchen side of it, actually having that space, the process is daunting. And so I've gone through it now 4 times for various projects and, moving the business and all that. And so I am able to actually sit down and talk with people and kind of talk them through that process of, okay, so you're just starting out, you have this awesome idea, you want to make, X, Y, Z, like, okay, so you need to talk to this person, and kind of walk them through that process. So it's not this scary, big, oh my God, 100 thing checklist. It's, okay, this is the process you follow, and it's really not that scary. So yeah, there's quite a demand.
Yeah, and honestly, like the longer you're in business, the more different like people are going to be coming through, the more businesses you're going to see the inner workings of. You're going to be such a useful tool to people just for advice and stuff as like you gain more experience in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's
I hope
awesome
so.
that that's like not something people are specifically paying for. Like, yeah, they pay to rent the space, but then you just like, that's one of the beautiful things in general about like local small business versus big business is the fact that you can actually talk to the owners and you can get so much different knowledge and customer experience. You know what I mean? Such a different experience than you ever would from like a Target or any big company, because they don't care. Versus like people like us, we want to be involved. Like we genuinely want to be at the event half the time because like we want to be involved in these types of things. So Eau Claire is surprisingly supportive, I think, as far as like the art community. Not in everything. I was just talking to somebody the other day about how like for some reason we're finally getting some murals downtown. I don't understand why this is such a difficult thing. They bring more people, they bring more art. So I want more murals in Eau Claire for sure.
Agreed.
But in general, like we're pretty supportive of like the arts. We have a lot of places. We have Artisan Forge Studios, which is where my friend Jacqueline Renee Jewelry, she was on the show. That's where she does all her stuff. There's an artist market in Phoenix Park during the summers normally. Even Becca, my neighbor of Reds, she does her back alley market thing in the summer during like the Eau Claire's Fest. There's Tangled Up in Hue that does all this stuff. Mm-hmm. How does Forage fit into this? What are you, like, why do you want to do it? What's different about Forage rather than all these other spaces?
So one of the reasons is because we have this beautiful space, and I didn't want to just leave it empty in the community for, 25 days of the month. And so what I was finding is that there are a lot of makers and artists here that don't have space. They're doing purely online sales, or they're just doing pop-up markets or craft shows, and they wanted to have the ability to actually be in a retail space, but they weren't finding that retail space, or when they did find it, that space was already full. They weren't accepting more artists. And so we have so much talent in this area that there's room for more of us. And so my focus, kind of my reason that I wanted to start this was to provide space for people who wanted to move out of online and into a real retail space. So of our artists, we have about 9 or 10 of them now. We're adding more every day. But of those, 6 of them are nowhere else in the community. So they possibly do online sales, or they don't even do that and they just sell here. And so I kind of view this similar to the kitchen, where that's that small business incubator space. Our artist market is the artist version of that, where they get to test out something new. So even the established businesses like, say the Glass Orchard, they have a retail space, they have a really great following, but maybe they want to try out something new, and they don't want to necessarily do that in their own space. They want to try out a new line. They want to try out a new technique. I really encourage that from our artists, is try something new here. There's no reason not to. I don't have limits on what my artists bring in. I encourage them to carry their full lines here. Don't just do 3 or 4 varieties of something. Bring everything, see what works for you. And then if they are ready to move on to kind of a bigger space that's open 5 days a week, 6 days a week, I can get them connected with those people rather than having to have them jump off from that point, which is a little scary.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have something that's in between your own store and just like a table at an event. you know? Like here, there's so much more you can do than just like showing up an artist market where you got maybe 2 tables and then a backsplash thing. Like there's a lot more potential to do things much grander. And not only that, but what sucks with a lot of these businesses and stuff is that when they want to throw an event, say it's like their anniversary or whatever it is, they can't do stuff on the day they want to do it because it doesn't line up because everyone wants to do something on that particular day or whatever, and then they just have to work with whatever days are available at a venue. It's nice when there's more options because they can say, hey, on like my shop's anniversary, I actually have a place I can throw this event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think there's like a lot more potential. It's like I said, it's nice that it's kind of in between those two things.
Yeah, I want people to have their stuff in the shop and then feel ownership of the space. You know, this is also their shop. It's not, oh, I'm just listing things for someone. It's their space.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's COVID, like we can't do events and stuff, but a lot of businesses in Eau Claire do their like one big event a year thing that it's like their day, right? Like there's Pickle Fest, which is like whatever. I'm not going to the pickle, but no offense to them. I'm just not a Water Street bar dude. But there's Pickle Fest and there's, you know, the Eau Claire's Fest and stuff, but there's all kinds of things. If Forage could have like one big event that every year it was Forage Day or whatever, what is the event going to look like for you?
I love this question because, to be honest, I hadn't even thought about it. But this is something that Forage has kind of its roots in the local farm community. And so if I was to create a Forage Day, I would have different chefs from the area pair up with their favorite local farms and serve this like really elaborate meal. So they could come in and, you know, one chef and farm pairs up for the appetizers. And then, you know, you have your first course, second course, third course, dessert, all this. I think that would be my ideal Forage event.
You could totally make that happen. Remember when they had the bridge opening?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they had, you know what I mean, where it was like a whole banquet on that bridge. You could totally do something like that. And I've thrown this idea out there, and I had one lady from the city that I was just kind of a jerk to because if somebody tells me like no, especially if I didn't ask your advice, like I'll tell you what I think of you. That's kind of how I am, you know, so I can be abrasive. Well, anyways, I was talking to this city council member who I went to high school with, and we're on super good terms. So I was talking to her and I was like, yeah, I've thought about running for council or something at some point. Like I don't really want to do it now because I don't have a whole lot of time. And if I'm going to do it, I want it to be like serious. Like I really want to focus on it then. And I don't have the focus right now to do it. I really want to shut down this area to only pedestrian traffic. Not all the time.
Barstow,
yeah. Not all the time. But I really think it would be awesome. They do it in cities all over the world. I've seen it everywhere. It's a common thing. And we've done it before for Jazz Fest and stuff. I would really love to see like Saturdays or something throughout the summer have Barstow shut down to only foot traffic, because then businesses like yours, where you're having these chefs and stuff, you could have them out on the sidewalk. Yep. Like, how cool would that be with people walking down, seeing the records, like all the sidewalk sales and stuff, like seeing the record store with their thing out there, having musicians performing, some of the food trucks down, like.
And have that be a regular thing in
we
summer.
Need to do that because the downtown Eau Claire community needs something like that. That is like the next step for what is happening in this area. And yeah, this lady from the city was like, no, well, all the lawyers need parking. And I'm like, use that $5 million parking ramp you don't use. Like, shut up. That's stupid. I think we need to do it. I think that would be sick.
I think
all the business owners down here would be like stoked to do stuff like that. That would
especially
be super fun.
because one of the biggest issues with access down here is parking. And so if people can just, walk in, I think and then it becomes an event. You're down here Saturdays.
People just need to understand that, like, you're not going to be able to just park in front of every business you want to go to. Go to any other city downtown. It's like impossible to do that. Like, we should just accept, like, that's why we paid for these parking ramps. People need to start using them. And versus, like, I know a bunch of the other business owners and employees downtown, and they move their cars every 2 hours. And I'm like, dude, just go park 3 blocks away. Like, why? What's the point? I don't. Whatever. People need to walk more in this town for sure. So moving forward, because this is just the very beginning, shutdowns may happen, but let's assume shutdowns don't happen. What can we expect to see from you in the coming, well, you just opened, so I guess weeks, months, the next year? Like, what can we expect?
Yeah, so the thing that I'm working on right now, which I think is really exciting, is actually restarting our Wine Wednesday dinners. So, and it may not be on Wednesdays anymore, so I'll have to come up with a new name. But we have these great chefs in the area who, maybe they work for a certain restaurant where they make a certain type of food, and they want to branch out or go, do something that they used to do in the past. And so I want to bring in all the chefs for, one a month and do this wine pairing and featured chef dinner series. And so right now I'm putting that together, putting the schedule together, pairing up the chefs with the months and the wines. And so that hopefully is going to be launching here in January or February. Obviously with the first few months or, even over the next year, how we're going to do it is really, really spaced out, limited numbers, all seated. You can't, wander around the space, so we can do it safely. And then the next thing after that is because we have so many people using the kitchen that are unique and maybe they aren't selling anywhere yet, they're just kind of getting their feet underneath themselves. I want to be doing events where people can showcase their talents, what they're making, kind of debut themselves in the Eau Claire area. So we should be doing some of those kind of grand showcases here in the next few months with new food-based businesses. So those are kind of the things I'm working on right now that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and I think this place is a lot less intimidating to do that in versus some of the other places that exist. I think partially just because it's so new and it's a little bit smaller and right on Barstow like this. It's like I said, I think it's just cool that it's it's ornate, it's fancy, it looks really nice, but it's so easy to be a part of. There aren't all these barriers to be able to join in with what's going on, which I think is really cool.
And that was the goal. Yeah, that was honestly that was the goal. Is we wanted this really low barrier to entry for people who wanted to start a business or reach the community or hold an event. If someone wants to hold an event here and they want to cook their own food, great. You can cook your own food as long as you're not selling it. Come in, cook your own food, bring it from home, whatever you want, bring in whatever caterer you want. We don't have restrictions on that. We don't have minimums. We don't have really, aside from what the city and the state tell us we have to do, we don't have a lot of restrictions when it comes to people who want to use the space. And that was the goal, is provide this really, nice, versatile space for people to use and then do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, I think that's another cool thing about small business again, is it's funny when I talk to people, and just maybe it's because I work for myself, but I'll bring something up hey, I want to do this. And, you talk to a bigger business and they're like, oh no, policy says we don't do that. And I'm like, okay, who's your boss? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just let me talk to whoever's in charge of it. And I talk to them and they're like, yeah, we don't do that. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, why don't you do that thing?
And they're like, well, because of whatever, bullshit reason. I'm like, okay, which is totally fine. You're at liberty. But in a situation like this, you can do anything you want. You own it. So when people come in and they talk to the owner, being you, there isn't a limitation at all. There aren't all these policies that well, no, we've never done it in the past, so we're just not open to doing it. It's let's have a conversation and see if this works out. Because I'm open to doing it. When people approach me and they're like, hey, do you want to throw a show? I'm like, well, my space isn't exactly the ideal space to do a show, but yeah, I guess, whatever.
Yeah,
what do you want to do? I always tell everybody, I'll take the phone call. What do you want to do? I'll take the phone call. Let's talk about it. If there's a way to make it work, awesome. I think it's cool with small businesses to be able to just have an open mind to stuff, because you can then have some pretty cool experiences you weren't expecting to have, which kind of brings me into the next thing. This is still really new. But in the last, since you joined in with this Forage thing, before, when you're working, I think, in business and you work for somebody else, it's very draining, because you're like, I'm not even working towards my dream. Why am I working? I'm working to make somebody else money. That's kind of defeating. But when you work for yourself, all this time and energy and money that you put in is so much more valuable, because you get to have all these cool experiences. You get to meet all these cool people. What is an experience you get to have so far during this that you're really thankful for?
So many of these people that I've met, other business owners in the area, people I've met once, people who have just come into the space, they've made the whole, really, really hard, 6 months of work and mostly doing it by myself, which is, it's a lot of work, as anyone who's started a business knows. It's really nice to see someone come in and say, wow, this looks really good. Or, wow, I had one person come in who, she was shopping with, I think, her mom, and she came in and she goes, man, if I could get it together, my house would look like this. And I just started laughing, and I thought, okay, yep, it's worth it. It looks good enough where someone can come in and say that, and that makes me feel so good. So that's just the community members, but the business owners in this area, I run next door and talk to Matt at Raggedy Man all the time for like, okay, so I'm considering changing my hours. Like, what would you do here? And he's been so supportive and just awesome. And, we refer customers to each other. And I've had people come in and pitch things like cooking classes here, and they say, I'm really proud of you. And I've met these people once or twice, and they say that, and that is like the most heartening thing someone could say right now. So it's been a really lovely 6 months.
It's cool to have that recognition when you put in all that hard work, especially when it's from people you don't even know.
Yeah.
It's like when I have somebody mention that they listen to the show and they really like it, and I'm like, sweet. Like I put in all this work hoping that somebody would, and it's really awesome when somebody does. This, and we don't necessarily have to include this on the episode, but I was just thinking about this because really the downtown community, like, it is such a strong community, but again, it's like a high school friendship thing where not everybody knows each other. Like everyone's open to being friends with each other. They just don't know each other necessarily. And the only place that really has something like that is like chamber type events. But I don't want to be a part of the chamber because they don't really bring me anything, which I get it. Like,
and it's more formal.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. I'll donate money to the chamber. Like that, I don't have a lot right now, but I support what they do, but it doesn't really give like the right place for me to want to network and be a part of. It's not really my thing. You could totally have business owner nights here, like a one night a month or something where you just say like, this is just open. You don't need to RSVP. If you own a business downtown, like, or in general, if you're involved in a business downtown, this is just a community get together. Again, this is when social gatherings are a thing.
Yeah, hopefully.
But this could be a really cool place for that, where people then can network and do things. Because even through the show, I've had so many opportunities where like, I made a candle with this candle maker or whatever, or I did a painting. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ken is awesome. She let me like pick my own scent and stuff. But in general, if we could get all those types of people together in one place where it's much more informal like that, a lot of really cool things could happen.
Yeah, imagine what could come out of that. Because honestly, people are looking for new things to try and new things to do. And if you just connect the right people, I think some really, really cool things could happen here.
Absolutely. So nearing the end of this, I always like to share a lesson. I don't have any more like words of wisdom because this is the 39th one that I've done this on. But I think everybody who's kind of been going through these journeys, like everybody messes up basically is what happens, right? You like stumble around with the lights off while you're trying to figure out what you're doing. And then you finally flip the light switch on and you're like, if I knew where that was in the first place, this would have taken me less time. What is a mistake that you made, that you learned a lesson from, that hopefully you can just like tell us now so that way other people don't like make those mistakes?
Sure. I would say the biggest mistake that I made was putting a date to my opening. And then I was very optimistic with the time I thought it would take to move the business and then get set up again. I think I gave myself about 2 weeks to set up the business after the move. And that was, in hindsight, like, what the hell was I thinking? So I would say give yourself the room and the time to make it work, to actually make it right before you open your doors. Because if you're rushing it, everything feels a little wrong. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is actually give yourself time to get things right before you plan on opening your doors. Otherwise, you'll just end up playing catch up.
Oh my God. I try to preach that a lot with the show of just like every market is oversaturated. That doesn't mean you can't be a part of it, but that does mean don't just throw another thing in.
Yeah.
Like just wait. And honestly, like just knowing from customer experience over the years, like customer service jobs, it's so much better to under promise and over deliver. Because if you tell somebody, even if I'm special ordering something, if I tell somebody that it'll be here by the end of next week, but I'm expecting it Monday, they'll be okay with waiting until the end of next week. And then they'll be stoked. Mm-hmm. Versus if I tell them I should get it Monday, now it's in their mind Monday, they're getting it. And if it's on Tuesday, they're going to be bummed. So it's much better to do that, I think. So I always like to ask this now and this season at this point, I've kind of figured this out, that people want to support the guests that I have on my show. And they want to support the show, but they want to support us because they just gave us an hour of their time or whatever. How can people best support you moving forward?
I think the best way would be, if you do have an event coming up in 2021, consider us. Come take a tour. Even if you don't have an event in mind, come down and say hi and see the space and kind of figure out what we're about and see what we can offer you, and maybe that'll spark an idea. So yeah, I would say the best thing that you can do is just come visit and follow us on social media.
Yeah, social media is huge. I mean, even just like sharing stuff. I always tell people like, yes, money runs the world. I get that. Yeah, you can donate to the show. That would be tight. Yeah, you can buy a t-shirt from me. That would be tight. But sharing us on social media or like writing a review, asking your friend to write a review, take a picture outside of Forage and say, look at this sweet place that I found, today or whatever. Even if you're just putting on your Instagram story, all those little things are very helpful ways to people like us. So do you have any last words? Any last things you want to like shout out or you want to talk about?
I would say I want to thank the community for welcoming us into downtown, specifically DECI. We were awarded the Jumpstart grant, which really helped us be able to open our doors still this year. And just in general, the downtown community, you've been awesome. I hope I get to meet a lot more people and do a lot more cool things in 2021.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you for letting me sit in your space. If people are wondering why it's a little bit echoey, it's because this place is huge. There's like huge tall ceilings. It's nice and bright. Like, you got to come check this out.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.